Are you going to do the intro today?
Yeah,
Okay.
intro.
Ah, excellent. I will take on the other intro then, which is hello and welcome to another episode of It's Just Not Crick Pod. We're doing kind of week two. It's not really week two anymore, but I guess our round two of the World Cup. Everyone's played four games. A lot of stuff has happened. A lot of questions are being asked about certain teams. Basically, it does not reflect what we had predicted or anything of what we had said last time.
Basically, ignore the
Um,
last episode.
Ignore, I feel like this has come round to bite me in the bum, in that last time it was haha, Australia. Now it's literally a flip reversal. Um, so yeah, cool. How are you feeling about your predictions about the pre World Cup predictions? We have two out of four.
Um, I mean, the one of the four is only just outside top four
Yeah,
somehow. I don't
sort of.
like
Yeah,
whether they'll stay there. I don't know, but
yeah.
yeah, there's, I'm still confident in three out of four.
Really,
Yeah, I think so.
I'm dead certain it's only going to be two. But I mean, it would be nice if we were somewhat right.
I mean, two is still pretty good.
Yeah.
Mm.
For those who may not have listened, our predictions were India, New Zealand, England, and Pakistan to be the top four. Obviously, everyone knows that India are unbeaten. New Zealand done very well, um, but they weren't in our running. South Africa in the top four, but somehow Australia are there, even though they were bottom last week. Um, right, so we'll do it slightly different this week. Last week we went from the top down because it was funny to then do Australia last. That's karma. So we're going to start from the bottom down. So it's almost like we're starting at the top. But England, we'll start with England, who are sitting pretty on bottom. Played four games, 1-1 against Bangladesh, which we talked about last time. And we were very happy about that victory. Thought things were looking up. I remember saying, this balance of the team works really well. um, I've not had sleepless nights about that. And then we had three losses. One we spoke about last time, which is New Zealand, but since then they've lost to Afghanistan. And I was going to say lost to South Africa, but absolutely pummeled by South Africa, not just lost. I think it's the greatest, biggest, it's definitely the biggest World Cup loss. I think it might be England's biggest ODI loss as well. Um, where would you like to start?
I mean, where can you start?
It's yeah, yeah.
I think you start all the way back to when England played a friendly test match game against Thailand. I think you go back to Stokes refusing to like give some county players a chance and to call up a player out of retirement rather than, you know, give someone a chance who's earned it. I think
Sure.
you go back to an England B team playing Ireland as a warm-up series rather than playing a team that you would play against a team that's qualified for the World Cup.
Yeah.
And then go back to bringing another player out of retirement instead of giving a player who's worked in the ODI team for the past year a chance who has deserved the opportunity to play, and then go back to including a perpetually injured player as the reserve who needs to be called up but has been said won't be coming in because he's not fit. I think that covers it.
Yeah.
We can move on now.
Sort of. There's
I think structurally it's a bit fucked. I don't think there's any true leadership. I think it's just people putting their hands into different
yeah,
parts and vibing to see how it works. And I think at the start of Bazball, the vibes were fine. And I know this isn't McCullum's
mm,
team, but it
yeah,
feels like the vibes from there has come into the ODI side, and it's just
yeah,
starting to show that you can't just live on that. You need to have some sort of plan, and it doesn't feel like this side has had any sort of plan coming into the World Cup, and it
yeah.
shows.
No, I think you've hit the nail on the head. Um, because
I said
everyone
we could move
knows.
on. No,
Yeah. But everyone knows the scores. Everyone knows what's happened. It was you don't need the stats. Everyone saw the capitulation. If you listen to this, you're I think most likely going to be an England follower or supporter or whatever. Um, so it wasn't good. But like you say, I think it comes from a number of different factors. One being that I genuinely believe that they have no idea what their best team would be, even if they had everyone fit. It comes from this team hasn't played together for since just before this World Cup in a cobbled together series against New Zealand. They haven't played the format to prioritize franchise cricket or T20 cricket for the World Cup, which obviously are the same. But you do include the 100 in that, the 100 as well for I'd say the 100, which, does do good things, but I will always hold by the fact that all the good things you have with the 100 could be done with any format. Um, but you have a domestic competition in England, which no other country plays, which the ECB prioritize at the height of summer. Um, so, you're preparing for a World Cup basically in that, which you're never going to play in. You're preparing all those players in a competition and, structure and everything that's not beneficial to, 50 over cricket. You're picking players who are probably more over the hill now than in their pomp or in their prime. Too many kind of looking back. Like you look at this squad, I think we've spoken before, but there's a vast majority of this they're going to retire after this World Cup. They want this to be their swan song, and that's kind of blown up in their face.
they're Graham Swan song.
Yeah, yeah. I mean that I'm trying to think of any defense. There's not really much. The only things I would say about Saturday's abject performance, if you're not counting abject decisions at the toss, it would be, Topley got another freak injury in his career, um, fracturing a finger, and he's been our best bowler this World Cup by a country mile. And I thought from what I've seen, because we were socialising on Saturday, from what I've seen and what I've read, he bowled pretty well on Saturday. Um, Even coming back on to bowl with a fractured finger, because England completely destroyed the makeup of their side by dropping their all rounders. AaDil Rashid looked absolutely ill as anyone has ever looked, but still managed to get through 10 overs. I think George Lavelle from the Cricketer was saying that he was pretty sure at some points between overs he was throwing up on the edge of the outfield because it was that hot and
Nice.
that disgusting. But, came back and continued to bowl, which, is great testament to both him and Topley's character. Willie went off with cramp, shockingly, he's not played any games in the last 3 weeks, and then suddenly you're throwing him to 36-degree heat in the middle of the day. I'm not really sure why that's a surprise. So that there are those kind of injury mitigating factors, and then also you're bringing in, a guy basically on one leg for his first game of this World Cup, and on his day would be great, but he's not being prepared for this because he's not got the body to be prepared for this, and we all knew that.
I mean, even then, if you're using this as a defense,
Yeah.
it's not England controlling
No.
that variable, it's luck,
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which, to be fair, I think teams can control injuries like this to an extent.
Yeah.
They can ease players back in. They can not field first in mad heat against one of the best batting sides in the tournament.
That's okay. Let's in a nutshell, we'll talk about
So
the
I'm
game.
not going to give you that as a defense for England.
No, I get that. I mean, I'll be cautiously defensive of Topley and Rashid from the way they bowled and the way they performed when the team's absolutely smashing everyone else apart. I guess Gus Atkinson came back and bowled pretty well at the end. But kind of damage was done. What made me laugh, again, this isn't really any analysis, but Sky Sports did a tweet when Atkinson got a wicket in the 49th over of Klaasen, who absolutely smashed it all over the place, citing it as Atkinson gets the vital wicket of class, and it's like they're 390 for 9 or whatever at this point. Like, what is done? What are you saying? Vital wicket? What, he's going to get 36 off the last over? Like, ridiculous. But yeah, it's in specifics of, even before the game, the specifics of the game are ridiculous. That I know Wokes has been out of form. I know Livingston's not done a lot, and Mo only played the first game, has not played since. But if you're going into that game with a mindset that you want to bowl first for reasons which are bizarre, considering you just lost chasing to Afghanistan, who are, with no disrespect to Afghanistan, they're better than us, but are not as good as South Africa. You've just struggled chasing, and I think, I don't have the stat, but England's recent chasing record has not been good. And if you look at their most recent batting first record, that has been very decent, especially if you look at the series at home against New Zealand. So you're taking all that into account, and you still, for reasons, want to bowl first. And then you're not picking a spinner in that heat, a second spinner. Root is your second spinner. Like, you need a Livingston, you need a Mo, someone just to like take the burden off. Atkinson, Willie, Topley, Wood, who's not a fit bowler as it is, and you're expecting a seam attack to perform in 35 plus degree heat in India. It's mad. Like, all their it just feels like this is like a Peter Moore's 2015 team. Like, they're looking at stats, but they're looking at the stats upside down. Like, they said they weren't prepared for heat in Mumbai when it's been this heat for the last fortnight. They also said that they bowled first because of the stats of the ground, but there's only been about, I think, 4 games at this stadium in ODI cricket in the last 10 years. And I think one of the Wisden journalists was saying, I think there's only been 1 win chasing or something. So what stats are you looking at? I don't understand. So I think just the head's completely gone. No one really knows what's going on anymore. They don't know what's going on. Everyone looks disillusioned. Joss looks like he wants to be anywhere else. It's a mess.
A little bit.
It's a worst case scenario. And I want to be as transparent. I was incredibly critical against Australia last time. England are in a completely worse state.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I think both, there's a similar argument in that I think both sides need freshening up and a bit of a reset.
Yeah.
But the difference with, say, Australia's bowling attack is it's still very good and very settled.
Yeah.
On its day.
100%.
Whereas England, what is their bowling attack?
Yeah, like,
I think,
bringing in Gus Atkinson is like, that's a very old England vibe of like, we'll just chuck him in and see how he does, or we'll just bring Willian off cold.
like, every other team is playing with 2 spinners because you're in India, and then you're like, well, we can't. Like, if there's some sort of fitness concerns with Mo and or Rashid, you need to bring a third spinner into the squad. Maybe it's the reserve. Maybe not bring Jofra because he's not been fit for 10 years.
But the Joff thing's also another, example of absolute heads gone. Like, announced, well over a month ago that Jofra is going to be your traveling reserve bowler. He was in India like this weekend, and then after the game, when Topley had the injury, Matthew Mott is saying, "Oh no, he's not going to be the reserve. He's going home tomorrow." It's like, well, why is he out there? What a waste of money. What's the point? What is that for? Why is he? You're not integrating someone back into the side by being like, "I have a look at this World Cup squad and it's nice." I don't understand the thinking. Like, maybe they thought he would be fit, but then he arrived there and wasn't fit. But then surely that before he flies. That's just nonsense. And then they've called in Bryden Cass, who I think I said before should have been in the squad anyway. I think he's a fresh outlook of a bowler to the future. But man alive,
it's not a good situation to be coming into as Cass. Like,
not at all.
he'll probably be getting a lot of pressure put on him if he plays.
Yeah.
Which honestly, there's throw a headless chicken in a roulette table and like to see where it lands
Yeah,
to see what England's side will
I
be.
know.
It's
Yeah. But you could have picked up anyone because I don't think with those injuries it has to be like for like. So I mean, none of the bowlers they got out there have done anything other than Topley, so you lose him, but you have already got two left armers out there, so you can just bring in Sam Curran or something, I guess. But I'd have been looking at. I think Brian Cast for me should have been there anyway. I probably would have had him ahead of Sam Curran, but considering there's no real looking to pick Mo for some reason, why not bring in Rayan? Or someone, another leg spinner who can bat a bit, strengthens both sides. What have you got to lose now? I don't bring back James Treadwell who for I care. It's like
like I don't
I don't
understand
understand.
why they're being so cautious with Rayan either. Like
Yeah.
more
Every
than
time he
just
plays, he
like
performs.
bantered Archer into the World Cup out of
Hmm.
nowhere, and he ended up bowling the super over in the final. Like
Yeah.
you can trust
Yep.
younger players.
Hmm.
You just have to make sure they're mentally in the right place.
Yep.
And I think that will only give younger players more confidence if you put your trust in them and play them.
Yeah.
And
Definitely.
he'll only improve significantly faster if he's playing in these high pressure games against better opposition rather than like Ireland
Yeah.
in a
Yeah.
games that don't actually matter in which you're playing the B team.
Yeah. I agree. Um, but Cars I think is good to bring up. But do you think again we've not really talked about the games because again I think frankly it doesn't matter because I think the issues run deeper. Do you think
Just to go on the games quickly, I think
go on?
all credit to Afghanistan and South Africa.
Oh yeah, we'll
Like
talk about them
for as
definitely, but
bad as England were, I think they were
100%.
fantastic. Like Gobaz,
Yeah, yeah,
um,
100%, definitely.
Akmal, Klassen,
Brilliant.
Sanderson.
Yeah. South Africa's bowling is frighteningly good. But England were very I think, England, I guess, knew the game had gone in the interval in this the South Africa game and just threw caution to the wind and it was just embarrassing. Because
But
it felt
when
like every couple of minutes we were saying there's a wicket. But Afghanistan's loss, as well as Afghanistan played, it was 100% complacency for my feeling. Like it was just we'll rock up. We don't have to take it too seriously. We'll bowl first and then get some wickets, and then people can have time in the middle and chase. It just there was never it never felt that game any sense of taking it necessarily seriously or urgency. And then you have a team like Afghanistan who are passionate and want to win and are a very skilled team, and they just snatch it. And I think that's just rewards for England. I think personally, again as well as Afghanistan played, but I think England just turned up just expecting to roll them over and didn't.
I think England are stuck in the mindset of we need to bat second so we know the score that
Yeah,
we're chasing down. Whereas I think if you're batting or if you're playing against teams that aren't as good as you, I think it's
yeah,
better to bat first so that you're putting the scoreboard pressure on them.
exactly. Look how they beat Bangladesh by getting scoreboard pressure. I understand. And you also need your players to get time in the middle and get form because they're not going to get form by chasing 400. They're going to just have to go for it. Like, Bairstow's not had a proper ODI innings for a long time. Like, you can't expect him then suddenly find it having to smash it from ball one.
And like even the South Africa game, like getting 400 might be unreasonable,
Yeah,
but like compare it to Australia, Pakistan, where Australia set them 360 odd. Pakistan
yeah,
still scored 300.
yeah, yeah,
They
yeah.
weren't, I, I don't even think they batted particularly
Hmm.
amazing. Babar and Rizwan stuck around and
Yeah,
solidified the innings really well.
yeah,
So if their bowling and fielding was a bit better, then maybe they had a chance. But they found a way to still put up an above average score, chasing a ridiculous score. Whereas England
yeah.
just lose their
No,
heads thinking we need to score 12 off every
yeah,
over.
yeah.
And
It
of
was,
course you're
yeah,
going
of
to lose the wicket because you're
course
not in
you are.
control.
And you also don't have the batting strength because you dropped your all rounders. You're suddenly 30 for five, and that's game over because David Willey's in. Like, what? It's there's no depth. Like, I remember us talking like who's gonna bat seven because what? There's no batters. Does it? So gosh, like I mean, it's not over mathematically for England. I think the result for Pakistan today blows it right open. I think it's the first ever World Cup. Or again, we're so good at stats in this pod. It's a stat I glanced at yesterday or whatever, but it's one of the first World Cups or one of the few that every team has won a game, which I think is great for the competition. Even though there's not been any close games, you want one of those to try and liven it up a bit, but it gives you the sense that anyone can win on the day, which is good. But yeah, England will have to win all their remaining games, of which includes India, Australia, Pakistan, Netherlands, and Sri Lanka. I mean,
We might win
no,
two of them.
maybe. And I said I'm putting this out into the audioverse as well. I think England will beat India, and it will be funny.
No, I don't. I just don't.
I think it'll be stupid because
I think
that's the kind of thing
India.
this stupid England team will do.
I think India lose one of the later games in the group matches when they're already qualified, and
Yeah.
like maybe they rest
Mhm.
Bumrah and Shami, or
Yeah.
so they don't have a bit extra.
Maybe.
But I
But
don't see it against England because
I just think
I think on the
funny.
one hand, India really want to beat this England team. Otherwise,
Yeah. Yeah.
you look like a loser if you don't beat England.
Yeah. Um,
I don't think Kohli would have that. I
I
mean,
know. Uh, Before we'll round up thinking, I realize we've not really talking about statistics again because there's nothing really to say. I can't really even remember who Harry Brook got some runs against Afghanistan and Rashi got some wickets against South Africa. That's kind of it. And Wood got a ridiculous 46 not out against South Africa at the end of about 16 balls, which is just again funny because it means everyone else is so bad. Um, we'll all talk about other World Cup stuff, but just in terms of future planning, I know England aren't out of it yet. They still have 5 games to play, but for all intents and purposes, they are out of this. Their net run rate is horrendous. It was already bad from the New Zealand game, but then considering this loss against South Africa, it's obscene. And you have to really hope results go your way in a big way to get anywhere close to qualifying. Post this World Cup, do you think? I mean, I think they will, but are you expecting the heads to roll following this, or do you think people will just jump ship? Like, do you think Joss would want to stay and rebuild in the same way Morgan did after 2015, or do you think he's gone? Do you think Matthew Mott's gone,
I mean,
or do you think they want to refresh it all?
it's too soon to get rid of Matthew Mott considering how well he's done previously.
Yeah.
I've never been convinced with Butler as a captain.
Hmm.
Like maybe he's fine game to game, but I don't see it for the behind the scenes things and like building a squad and looking to the future. So I think you're best taking the captaincy off him and giving it to someone who would come into the team and like make it their own, put their own stamp
Yeah.
on it. Whoever the fuck that would be, I
Jack
don't
Crawley.
know. Um,
I mean, he's got that's the problem is though, like a lot of people saying like Joss will probably go, which I think he probably would. Because again, you don't look at him in the same way you looked at Morgan as a captain, as a figurehead. You look at Stokes as a figurehead in a test team. You very much identify them as captains. With Butler, I just don't see it. I mean, I think he captained very well in the T20 World Cup last year. But in this, I think he's just gone missing at times. Like, which
like you think about all the franchise cricket he plays. It's none of franchise cricket is 50 overs.
no, no,
So he's got the familiarity with T20s and
yeah.
the ability to thrive there.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would be a step too far to drop him as a player because he's just too good. You
I
can
don't think they'd ever want to drop Butler, definitely, but I don't think he'd want to play.
uh, fuck him then.
That's
Like, if
that's
you're in that mentality anyway,
yeah,
then you shouldn't. You sh
yeah.
I don't want you in the
He,
team. Like
he
the
might say,
coaches shouldn't want you in the team. The fans shouldn't want you in the team
yeah,
because you should be wanting to fix this, whether
yeah,
you're captain or not. Like
yeah,
Root stepped down as captain as the dead
hmm,
side. He's stuck around,
yeah,
and honestly, it's been all for the better for Root.
yeah,
Like
exactly, yeah,
when
yeah,
Cook stepped down as captain and stuck around, maybe to help Root he's into captaincy
Yeah.
early on as well. And Kirk still played well and
Yeah.
helped win. Like if Butler doesn't want to do that, and
Yeah.
again,
But it's yeah, I think he's going to be offered a very lucrative 3 year deal from England in their way to try and avert them from franchise contracts. They're going to offer their big players multi-year deals, um, but which I mean makes sense. But you don't. I feel it very odd to offer it to someone who would just prioritize T20 cricket. If he's your white ball captain in all forms, maybe he will stay at him. But and I'm maybe just reading into the fact that he's probably very depressed from how bad it's going. I just don't get the vibe he's all there with it. I you just want him to take you. I feel like the Saturday game was so bad. Lose it, sure, but that was a kind of day where you want like Butler to be like, I just over my dead body kind of thing. Like even if you don't get, like you say, like Pakistan got 300 against Australia, like just do something. It just felt like we just have to keep smashing it from the beginning and hope something happens, and then oh no, the game's over. Um, but yeah, we should move on because there's a lot of England chat. But I think miserable is the vibe, and the next game they have is Sri Lanka, who are above us in the table. I say us, not we're doing very little in the tournament. But Sri Lanka,
I mean, everyone is above us, so
yeah. Well, just very briefly, because I haven't got an awful lot to say about Sri Lanka. Play 4 games, same as England, won one, lost three. The game they won, we would have talked about
Netherlands
it
on
last
Saturday.
time. Oh no, we didn't want to talk about it. Netherlands, yeah, which was also quite a close game. Because I'm gonna bung in Netherlands this chat slightly as well and go into Netherlands in more detail. But I felt that was fairly close. Sri Lanka, I guess, kind of did it quite comfortably. But Netherlands, similar to how they were against South Africa, were in dire straits. They were 91 for 6, but then managed to rally around and get to 262, which to me screams of a team that plays 50 over cricket and knows how to rebuild, unlike some. And then Sri Lanka got there with 10 balls to spare, 5 down. So, don't, Afghanistan won again today. I wouldn't write off Netherlands getting another win in this tournament. I think they could definitely beat someone you consider to beat South Africa, but Sri Lanka, they've got probably they have. They've got almost as bad a net run rate as England, so you'd imagine it'd be very difficult for them to do something. Probably could turn over England. I think they really squandered an opportunity against Australia. They were something like at least 100 at least in the opening partnership. I mean 120, but they're about 100 odd for none. And then just ended up faltering and falling away and just getting a very below par score when Australia again looked very on the ropes and looked very disillusioned. But then they let Australia back in the game, and then Australia from that point on just grabbed that initiative and just run with it. But Sri Lanka had a real opportunity to grind Australia out, but didn't really happen.
Like
But they're on,
strangely, they're still kind of impressing me to an extent. Like
yeah.
they've not played badly enough to warrant being ninth. Like especially individual performances like Mendes, Medashankar, Samara Wickham,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Nisanka a couple of games. Like
Yeah.
they're doing
They're doing okay. I
okay.
just think, yeah, they just feels like they need another powerhouse in the middle order, and they need another bowler. Um, that I think the Australia one is ample example that they had a great platform, and then just it all just fell apart.
Yeah, like if they had Hasaranga in, or if
Mhm.
Tikshana was
And
in
Angelo
before
Matthews,
form, yeah,
yeah. But oh well. I mean, they've done well, and I think they could have. They got a massive score against Pakistan, which at the time was thought that was a very good effort. But looking at Pakistan now, I'm not really sure. Um, but yeah, they could probably beat England, and I think they'll probably get a couple other wins in this World Cup. Um, but I can't see them getting anywhere close to top 4. Um, Next up though, A team I very much enjoyed. We just briefly spoke about, but I've enjoyed watching Netherlands immensely. Um, Obviously they lost to Sri Lanka on Saturday, but again from that fight back through Logan Van Beek. I love Logan Van Beek. He's such a good all-round player. But it was their game against South Africa that, obviously took the cricket world by storm. South Africa being absolute guns in this World Cup. And then somehow from somewhere losing to the Netherlands. Which to me is a proper shock. Afghanistan beating England, I don't think is necessarily a shock or upset. I don't think it should be labelled as that.
I think
But
you always
Netherlands
go
being
into a World Cup thinking England are going to lose one
yeah,
nation, and they've
yeah,
lost
yeah.
two.
There's always one. But Netherlands beating South Africa was a hell of a result. It was slightly rain affected. So it was 43 overs a side, which does make a difference. But once again, they were again a bad start. They were so let's have a look. 50 for 4, then 82 for 5, and then 112 for 6 before getting around and getting to 245 for 8 off the Merva, getting 29 of 19 balls, obviously previously of South Africa, but wasn't picked for one of their previous World Cup campaigns. So I dare I say he enjoyed this quite a lot. Scott Edwards, the captain, getting 78 not out. Red Ink, what a great little innings there as well. But yeah, getting to 245 against that attack of 43 overs is pretty good going considering the start they had. But then South Africa just never felt in it. It just felt like they were never going to get close. Like it was almost a week ago now, but it was very like, so they're now up on the up again, but it just felt like they were just kind of stuck in the mud, shall we say. Netherlands just kept on getting wickets again. Our friend Logan did very well. Colin Ackerman, cheeky one for Mikran 2, Van der Merwe 2, and absolutely loves all his wickets. Baz the lead 2, just shared it all around. It just everyone turned up and everyone performed. It was just a very nice, wholesome win. Because lest we forget, they also beat South Africa at the T20 World Cup last year, so they've now done the double. You just watch them. You just see the enjoyment they have from playing. I think it's just a great fun to watch. I'm just enjoying the vibes.
Yeah.
Are you enjoying the vibes,
Yeah.
Netherlands?
They're just a nice team to root for. Like,
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
a lot of camaraderie about them. It feels like their vibes is professional and has like thought up statistics and tactical analysis to
Yeah.
back it up. And
Mhm.
I think it helps having the qualifiers come into the World Cup for teams like Netherlands and
Yeah,
Pakistan. So you've got
definitely.
competitive edge practice.
Yeah, means something, definitely.
Yeah. And like,
Yeah.
I think in most uh big international competitions, whether it's the Cricket World Cup or like I've noticed it a lot in the FIFA World Cup as well, the eventual winners will have an early bad result. Like
Yeah.
Argentina drew against Saudi Arabia, I think.
Yeah.
I think Spain in 2010 either lost or drew against Switzerland
Mhm.
early on, and that like
They need
Portugal
their
in
loss to get out of the system.
Portugal in the Euros they won in France, they drew all of their group games,
Yeah.
finished third in the group and still won.
Yeah.
Like I don't
So, yeah.
like for South Africa that can be a bit of a kickstarter to the rest
Yeah.
of the group.
Yeah.
Their game against India is going to be really interesting.
Oh, massively. I can't
Can
wait
we
for
on
that
from
one.
that? Like,
Yeah.
could be potential
Yeah.
final
Um,
making, but the way
yeah.
New Zealand has been going, like, who knows? Like,
It's all to play for. I mean, I
yeah,
think what also just shows, I think I mentioned before, every team winning a game is you just can't be complacent or afford to be complacent against all these teams. Because what really struck me with the Netherlands game against Africa as well was, I know they're all professional outfits, but the professionalism of Netherlands, that it wasn't just like they'd randomly snatched a fluke or someone had just got a cheeky 5 wickets from nowhere or there was a bazaar run out. It was very clinical. It was very much, here are our plans, here's our process. We know exactly who our matchups are. how to bowl to particular players, how to squeeze the run rate. I just think they were very, very impressive on that game. I really enjoyed watching it. But yeah, it's good. I mean, talking quickly, very quickly, probably in a minute 54 seconds worth for no reason at all. Do you think, considering the performances of Netherlands and Afghanistan and the future of ODI cricket, do you think that World Cup should, a bit like football, I'm not sure about rugby or what the process there, but should there be just a overall World Cup qualifier that everyone has to play and qualify for the World Cup rather than the test nations automatically getting it, like the Indias, Australias, Englands, considering they're always going to be in the rankings in the top 6, 8? Do you think it should just be a free for all that you have to qualify for a World Cup? I know they'll never do it because they want their money, but do you think that there should be a World Cup qualification system overall?
I don't know if there are enough teams for that to be viable. Like maybe expand it. I think the change I'd like to see is go from the one big group to have like 4 groups of 4.
Yeah.
Then you've got 16 teams, and
Yeah.
there's
I'm
more
just
chance
wondering,
of a smaller team to
yeah,
get through.
get through,
I
do
don't
something.
think there's enough high quality teams below that one like
Yeah,
tier to really properly compete.
potentially not. I'm just trying to think of ways to contextualize or add purpose to bilateral series because, like you said, that the Afghanistan Netherlands had an edge to their games that they've played and a purpose, and that's why they're a bit more striving to be better. I'm wondering if all teams could have that as well, but who knows? So moving on without any break, Bangladesh are next, 4 games, 1 win, 3 losses, 2 points. They've lost their other games since we last spoke. I've not got an awful lot to say about Bangladesh. I would put them in the same kind of brush as England and Sri Lanka in that I don't really see them getting much. They've got South Africa tomorrow. They just played India and didn't really feel like they turned up. It very much turned into the Kohli show on that one. Shakib was out of that game, so they'll be hoping Shakib will come back. But I've honestly not got a lot to say about Bangladesh. Have you?
I couldn't tell you who their win came against.
That's the pub quiz.
Like I
Let's
don't
find
think
out.
any player of theirs has particularly stood out. Usually it would be Shakib.
Mm.
Like Mustafiza has done in the past, Flick Das has stood out in the past, but I don't think any of the usual players have really shown up. Mehdi Hassan, like he's
Yeah,
done all right.
it's bits. It's just bits, isn't it? It's nothing like substantial. They beat Afghanistan in the opening game. That's it. And you would wonder where the next win would be coming from, especially if Netherlands continue their kind of upward spike. So, but they have got a lot of spinners, and they've have got players for the conditions. So potentially, if Shakib does come back, but again, sorry Bangladesh fans, but I've not got a heap of lot to say. But if you cause another upset, we will talk about you.
But it feels like 1 or 2 of their players perform
Yeah.
each game, but they've got the capacity to have 5 or 6
Yeah.
perform, and they'll like lead to a win.
Yeah. Yeah. I think they could get another win. But we talked about them before the tournament that they are a bit of a mess behind the scenes as well. So whether they can rally around again to do something, we'll see, but I doubt it. But the next lot that I want to talk about, because we have to, because they're sixth, is Afghanistan, who have played 5, lost 3, but have won 2, and they have beaten, as we've mentioned, both England and Pakistan, which is pretty hype, would you say?
really wild that those are the two teams they've beaten. Like when we just said
Yeah.
Bangladesh, they've lost again.
Hmm.
It was India and redacted. I don't remember. But like
Uh,
it's
well, also, but that's the thing. They played New Zealand. No,
mm,
hold on, what I'm talking about. That's did they play New Zealand? Yes, sorry, they've played. Sorry, let's go back. So they played. Oh, now it's going to Asia Cup territory. Hold on 1 second. They have played in this World Cup with no shadow of doubts. They played India in a that
in
wasn't
the
their first
game.
game though. They played Bangladesh. We just spoke about that. Right. Why is the Asia Cup in the same bracket of the sorry, this is Cricket Info's fault. So they played Bangladesh in the opening game, which they lost. They were all out of 156, and Bangladesh got them four down. But what I thought was pretty impressive was they played India in their second game. India did win by 8 wickets, which fair. Um, but they got managed to get 272 against India, which I think was only just beaten by New Zealand on Sunday. Um, their bowling was found a bit wanting, obviously, but people like Rohit and Kohli and all that lot in India is not easy. But getting 272 against that attack is pretty good, considering they were a team we've said before where are the runs coming from. Um, but then they beat that by getting 284 against England, which pretty good, right?
Yeah, I mean they've been setting competitive scores
Yeah.
pretty well. Like up until today, I think the weakness was the least amount of wickets fallen in their innings was 8.
Hmm.
In all the
Yeah.
other games that they were all out.
Yeah.
So it was a bit of a surprise that they weren't more than 2 down
Yeah.
this game, but like I think that says more about Pakistan's bipolar bowling and fielding than anything else.
Yeah.
But then you still
Um,
have to do the batting, and like Gurbaz, especially in the like against England and Pakistan, have been amazing. Right?
yeah. I mean, you could also say that they're learning and adapting because they're playing all these good opposition, which they normally don't get a chance to do. But no, it's that considering four of their teams they've played in their first 5 games are England, Pakistan, New Zealand, and India. Like before the tournament, you wouldn't be laughed out if you said that those four were going to be semi-finalists. So it's pretty a hard run in, and they won 2 of them, which is mental.
Yeah,
Um, I think it's just proving like they were very good against England. Again, I think England were incredibly complacent against them, thinking how they would just, you know, roll them over quite no problems. But their win today was very impressive. Um, uh, Pakistan finished on 282 for 7. But that was largely due to some low order runs from Ithaca, who got 40 off 27. But they lost Baba at um, I think it was 206. So they were 206 for 5 with less than turnovers to go. So they really had to go some to get to that. Um, and then watching it and listening to it on the radio, all the chat was, well, how are Pakistan going to win this? How are they gonna amp up the pressure? They're going to squeeze the runs. That Afghanistan are going to really have to work hard to try and find a way of winning it. But they were only 2 down. They won by 8 wickets. And the way they did it was just very professional. They never lost their heads. I mean, another team would suddenly be like, there was one stage, I think, in the last 10 overs where it got to more than run a ball, but not once did it look like they panicked. They ran really well between the wickets, hit boundaries when they need to. Some of the shots from Ramet, he hit Hassan Ali for 2 sixes down the ground, which were just in massive high pressure situations, was just incredible to see. They had a 100 partnership, 130 between Gurbaz and Zadran. Um, just very, very clinical and very, very good. And it just, as we were saying, that they're all out in a few of their other games, but you can just see that they're a team just developing and learning and maturing. Um, and I can see them winning more games this World Cup. Like, considering they've now played four big teams, sure they've got people like South Africa to play, but I think a game against Australia could potentially be very interesting. Netherlands, you could say they probably would win there. Sri Lanka, there's winnable games for Afghanistan now, you'd have to say. And I thought they bowled today. The score for Pakistan, I think, flattered them a bit. But Noor Ahmad, his first game of the tournament, got 349. Mohammed Nabi bowled 10 overs, 131. And this is a day when Rashid Khan didn't even get any wickets. Like, Rashid did nothing today. And it's just, they're just getting better and better. And you kind of love to see it.
Yeah, it felt like the old Afghanistan would rely on Rashid Khan too much, especially
Yeah.
the bowling attack. But I can't remember which tournament he first played in, but Mujib, especially in the last T20 World Cup, really caught my eye opening bowling with his sort of straight, flatty off spin.
Yeah.
Like if Bumrah was a off spinner.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it just, I don't know, it is off spin, but it still feels like the steam is coming on
Yeah.
in the bowling. It's a very
Flat, very
unique,
flat.
yeah. Like he's only improved. He's got good economy rates.
Yeah.
It's very tricky for batsmen to set off
Definitely.
when he's one of the first ones coming in. Nabi is a really solid all rounder for when
Very experienced. Just,
Mujib
what you
and
want.
Rash aren't performing. And like that comes back to it. Like each team has at least two really good spin bowlers for this tournament.
Yeah.
And the best teams will probably have another
Yeah.
just floating around. Like South Africa will have Shamsi Maharaj and then Markram just to
Yeah.
do a bit unique.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, India will have
Kuldeep,
Jadeja.
Jadeja,
Yeah,
Ashwin.
exactly. Like
Yeah.
even Australia. No, not Australia.
Well,
Um,
Zampa and Maxwell has bowled pretty well for Australia, as a very part time. But he's, like we said last time, he's kind of the Mo of the team. Like if England were playing Mo in these conditions, I think he would do just as well as Maxwell's doing. But they're not playing him. Um, but yeah, there's
yeah,
also, just quickly again, I know I mentioned him, but Noor Ahmad today, I just think bowled really well. He's a left arm leg spinner, which is very rare.
it
And
feels quite in vogue for this World Cup.
yeah,
You know, like
yeah,
Shamsi, Kuldeep.
yeah. I love to see it because it just looks like it comes out so, I don't know, mystery spin is such a generic term, but it looks just different, and you can see from the way that Pakistan were facing him up that he's not played many games before. They obviously weren't really expecting him to play, and there was one ball that just really just jagged into Baba, and it's just, you just love to see these new talents from, I guess, smaller cricketing nations come through, and it's just, yeah, again, like I said, I think they'll win a couple more games, and I don't. People saying that today was an upset. I don't think today is an upset. I think this is a showcase of where this team is at. And you look at the way, compare them to Ireland, for example, who got test status at the same time as Afghanistan. They are worlds apart, and Afghanistan are just developing, and considering all the background with everything through Afghanistan itself, the country and the conditions, and they don't have half of the things that England or Australia or India have in terms of development, and they've managed to roll over both Pakistan and England. I think it's just, it's a very good cricketing story for them, and I want them to continue doing well. Basically, in a long rambling nutshell.
And from a neutral perspective, it gives basically every team a chance to get that fourth spot now. Like I think
Yeah,
three teams are clear favourites,
yeah,
the top three. But because Afghanistan have won these two games, like Netherlands beating South Africa, it's just opened it up completely for the rest of the
yeah.
pack to just
Hmm.
fight it out. Like,
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, we mentioned before, so we'll jump on into number 5. The Pakistan, who lost today. Um, Played 5, won 2, lost 3, beat Sri Lanka and another. Again, we spoke about those last time. They were in the top 4. Can't remember who they won against. Uh, this is so bad. Who did you win against, Pakistan? Because it feels a world away now.
They beat Sri
Um,
Lanka.
they beat Sri Lanka in a game that Sri Lanka played very well,
Mm-hmm.
and they beat didn't win. They capitulated against India, um, lost against Australia,
Mm-hmm.
and they beat.
Who even
Sorry,
left
stand
at
by,
this point?
listeners. I'm just so confused. They beat Netherlands.
Okay, yeah.
So they started promisingly, but probably by winning games you expect them to win.
Mm.
Um, the India game they lost, they were incredibly poor. Um, for a game that was, I guess, I suppose, quite rightly hyped up, it was just a completely nothing event. Um, Pakistan just capitulated with the bat. They lost all kind of semblance of what they were from the first 2 games. Bowling was average, and India just easily walked that game. And then, like we said today, Afghanistan were just it was a very clinical performance. Um, and then Australia, again, they dropped David Warner when he was on 10 and he ends up getting 160 odd. I mean, that's not going to help your cause. They fought back well against Australia at the end. I think Shaheen got Pfeiffer. Um, but again, when you've dropped a batter who's then got 160, the kind of damage is already done. Um, they batted with spirit, shall we say, to get to 300. Um, but I think today's loss against Afghanistan will really shake them. And I don't think I see them coming back from that. I don't think they'll get top 4.
I think it's interesting when you compare them to England, for example, where you don't know what England's best team is. There's
Mm-hmm.
questions over the actual quality of some of the players. I
Mm-hmm.
think Pakistan's 1 to 11 almost picks itself. They
Yeah,
won Naseem, sure, but I think all of their players are still very high quality players. It might
yeah,
like
definitely.
it's a question of if it's a form thing, is it a mentality thing? Is there a bit of complacency thinking we've got Baba and Rizwan at 3 and 4, so if things do not pan out early on, we
Yeah,
can rely on them? Is that leading to an over reliance? Because a lot of the time
maybe.
the openers and the middle order aren't performing, and I think
Yeah,
Rizwan, when he hasn't hit his stride this World Cup, Pakistan haven't
falling apart.
performed well. Yeah,
Yeah,
like today he got single figures.
yeah. Look, he
It's
looked
very low
very
score.
struggled a lot against Ahmed.
Yeah, and like he feels like he's the glue, and he
Mm.
should be because Saba should be the glue at 3 as captains, and he's having a very
He's
bitter
having a
look.
very. He's had 250s, but he's looked a shadow of himself. Do you know what I mean? Like you compare him. I know you shouldn't compare him to these kind of players because it's nonsense. But you compare him to Kohli, and you look at the tournament Kohli's having at number 3, and he's absolutely bossing it. I mean, I did predict that he would. Um, but
Person
Bab,
predicts one of the best players in the world to play well.
um, but he's just looked like, for example, today, he got 70 odd, but didn't go on. Today's a game where you need him to get 100 plus to, kill off Afghanistan, get 300 plus. They're not going to chase that down. You'd have thought scoreboard pressure. Um, but the India game didn't turn up there. It's got out to quite a few loose shots. Um, the Australia game as well. Again, you just want a captain, a bit like Joss, I think. But I would compare them both quite similar in this World Cup. That they've not really led the team. I don't feel they've just kind of been there through. I don't know, stature, like they're Babar Azam and it's Joss Butler. They're the best players in the world. And kind of quote our mutual friend Ollie King, he's felt like a bit of a fraud in this World Cup. Like, where is he? Like, he's not. He's still ranked number one in the world, and there's no semblance. Like, sure, he's hit lovely cover drives and things like that, but you start to wonder at the big occasions how much of that is stat padding and how much of it is flat roads in Pakistan. Is he on the level of Root and Kohli and Smith in his prime? He's a very, very good player, but he is not turning up in these high pressure, important moments for Pakistan, which is a concern, I think.
I think it's been a bit of concern for Pakistan in World Cup tournaments.
Mm.
Anyway, they just choked in
Go
final
missing.
game,
Mm.
which like it tells me it's a bit of a mentality thing. It might
Yeah,
be
yeah, I think
it,
so.
like if you take captaincy off Babar, keeping the team, put the pressure off,
Yeah,
maybe there's a bit
yeah,
more coherence or
yeah,
whatever within the team and they perform better. It's just
yeah,
because the individual players are sick. Like
yeah. Yeah,
like
they've
I
got
said
batters
before,
and
like
bowlers for galore.
Afghanistan have been out for at least they've been 8 down at least in every
Mm.
batting.
Yeah,
So against an attack of Shaheen, Hassan, Ralph, you'd
yeah,
expect them to be a few more wickets down.
yeah.
But like Ralph has been very expensive
Bowl very
this
poorly. Like,
World Cup. I don't know where that's come from.
yeah, it's almost like
Uh,
pace isn't working this World Cup. Like Wood was very expensive against South Africa as well. I don't know if pace on is the way to go, but Shaheen I thought was poor today. He bowled a lot of full tosses and a lot of short balls and stuff. And I don't know whether it's like almost like pressure, like they always go to those bowlers to do something. Like he did against Australia, but it felt like again, it's kind of goes back to Babel. Like I think his captaincy was poor. Like he brought on his leg spinners in like the 40th, like after 40 overs, when it was just calling to like bowl Shaheen and bowl Harris Ralph and bowl Hassan Ali and kill the game now and don't leave it too late. And he just kept on bowling leg spins and then brought back Shaheen when they needed 20. And it's like, you need to win the game before that. Like they're only two down. So I don't know whether it's a pressure thing. And I do think there's also a bit of mentality thing. There's so many shots I've seen where something's gone wrong or a misfield or a drop catch or a bad ball. And you just see Rizwan behind the stumps just like that. And like if you're showcasing that kind of level of almost embarrassment on the field, God knows what it's like in a dressing room. Like they got Mickey Arthur as coach, and he won't take that peacefully. Like it's not gonna be a nice place. So bad. It's very bad for Pakistan. And considering how promisingly they start again against teams they should have beat, but yeah, not looking good. I think that loss to India really did shook them, and this is going to shake them even more. Um, Conscious of time, so we'll jump on to the top four. Surprisingly, we've got Australia there. Um, uh, they lost 2 from 2 in our previous encounter. They've now won 2 out of 4, beating both Pakistan and who did they beat?
yes. Well,
They beat Sri Lanka.
oh,
Again, as we
if
mentioned
that should be
before,
the go-to answer. Who did this
yeah,
team beat? Probably Sri Lanka.
probably Sri Lanka. But yeah, I mean, they bowled out Sri Lanka for 209 and then chased that down 5 down, which, I think for me, in my critical form, is more of Sri Lanka losing the game than Australia, you know, forcing it. Like a team being 100 plus for none to then be 209 all out is kind of unforgivable. Um, as well as Australia bowl, you still need to rally around. And some of the shot selection was just horrendous. I think it might have been Mendes. I might have just thrown someone else under the bus who doesn't deserve it. No, it was Kusal Mendes, the captain, who played just a horrific slog sweep on 9 off Zampa, where Zampa again was under pressure and hadn't really been doing an awful lot, and they just gifted him a wicket by slog sweep, and it felt like they were getting out rather than being got out, and it just for when you're playing an Australia team, very unlike Australia to kind of be backs against the wall. As soon as you give them just an inch, they're going to take a yard for all these classic cliches, but they just do. They're that kind of team. They're not good. Their pride was all obviously 100% hurting from the way that they're lost. But they just completely fell apart. It just was a bit embarrassing to watch, to be honest. They were 178 for 4 at one stage, to then be 209 all out is just bad. But Zampa has now got wickets from being one of the worst bowlers in the world form wise to now, I believe, is the 6th leading wicket taker in the World Cup with 9 wickets. And yeah, they came out with kind of a feeling that they wanted to get it done quickly, was the vibe, that getting that run rate up. Like Marsh is now in the runs. Labuschagne just kind of played the anchor innings, got 40. Like you mentioned before, with teams freshening up, they brought in Josh Inglis, which I thought was a very bizarre selection when they did it. But he's now got a couple of good scores. Kind of being a fresh face coming in, I guess, works. Looking to the future, Maxwell got 31 off 20. Stoinis got 20 off 10. So they, dusted South Africa. They didn't dust South Africa. They dusted Sri Lanka, and then played Pakistan, and then beat Pakistan by scoring lots of runs. Where are the runs?
Pakistan.
Yeah, 367 for 9. With very good hundreds from Marsh and Warner. Warner getting 163. He was dropped twice, and Marsh 121. A very brutal is the word. I think I used it a lot last time. It was a very brutal opening partnership. 259 they put on for the first wicket, and that's where you kind of saw the real frailties in Pakistan. But they did fall apart again. That's the thing. The teams they have beaten have been Sri Lanka and a poor Pakistan. So I would call thy Jets a little bit Australia. But yeah, they were 259 for none to 367 for 9. Again, is a bit of a collapse, but they are going for it a bit. Smith, I don't know whether it's a bit of concern. He was out first ball against, or very basically first ball against Sri Lanka, and then he got 7 against Pakistan. So he's really trying to find form. Labuschagne seems to be the problem that they're stuck with, that he's like a very sticky player but doesn't really offer you much. So you feel that their powerhouse is Warner and Marsh up top. I think Head is now in India, so he may come in. That might help strengthen them batting a bit. But a win's a win, and that's only going to be good for them. Again, Pakistan batted. They started very well. They were 134 for none, kind of very similar to Sri Lanka. But then were eventually 305 all out, and Australia won by 62 runs. A much better position for Australia, but I find it very odd. What is your opinions on Australia?
I think we were a bit harsh on them last week, considering the opening 2 games were probably the 2 favourites for the whole thing. But they've won 2 games you'd expect them to win anyway, or you'd expect them to have a competitive game against Pakistan, who were really poor in the field. Still fair play to Warner and Marsh, because you need to still bat the runs and hit them as far as they did into the stands. I wasn't expecting Mitch Marsh to get 100 full stop.
I think Mitch Marsh is a terrific player. I love watching Mitch Marsh back. Yeah,
when he's on it, he just hits it so hard.
It's just so tall and just big, isn't he? It's just it looks like it's great. As even that innings against England at Headingley was just fun.
Huge tree trunk arms.
Yeah, exactly. Just use his arms. But if if Warner had been caught and he was out for 10, I think you're looking at a completely different game.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it's very easy to say when they get 259 for the opening partnership, but like I said, Smith's been struggling. Marnus is a bit of a weird enigma. Maxwell was out first ball here. I don't think Maxwell knows what he is anymore as a cricketer. Josh Inglis only just coming in after playing. He got a good score against Sri Lanka, but against probably a better bowling attack against Pakistan. How would he do here? But that's just luck of the draw, isn't it? And that's what's going to happen. You are going to have drop chances, but you don't drop someone like David Warner twice when you know how well he plays in India. But you would say that win would have given them an awful lot of confidence. But yeah, I think they've got bigger tests to come.
Yeah, like Heads coming up back in feels like it will complement the team
Yeah.
really nicely. I still feel like there's a place for Carey in the team as well.
Mm.
Even if it's him and Inglis in the team.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
if 2 games was too early to judge every team, I still think it's a bit too early to properly judge about 7 of the teams.
Yeah. Because so much change, considering this time last week, Australia were bottom, they were in England's position. And then, we're a week later and now they're fourth. It's just so much is in flux, considering so many teams winning, losing all the time.
And that's in part to the shockier results of Afghanistan, Netherlands, opening the door for teams who started poorly to find themselves in fourth. Like,
there's a high chance that Afghanistan could qualify for the semi-finals. I think that's very exciting. But yeah, Australia better. And again, like we said, we were a bit, I suppose, critical. But they'll be better for confidence. But yeah, as soon as they play it, I think a real test again will be to see how they're now going to fare against a New Zealand, for example, who are not as quite as gung-ho as India and South Africa, but are a very good professional team, who won't drop Warner on 10. That drop was the worst drop of this World Cup by, like, if it had been a half chance, you'd be like, fair enough. But it was literally just poor. But anyway, we don't love to see Warner runs, but well batted.
I mean, I had it with my fantasy team, so I was fine with it.
I think I did. No, I had Marsh. Okay, so yeah, GG's Australia, I guess. Then we're into the top 3 big dogs. And the 3 teams you'd expect to be in the semi-finals. Shockingly, who knew? First up, South Africa. They are playing tomorrow against Bangladesh, which you'd expect them to win. They are 4 games in, 3 games won, 1 loss against Netherlands, which we spoke about. 6 points and a very healthy run rate, considering they basically got 400 against England. Have you got any thoughts on South Africa, or is it kind of more of the same?
Yeah, more of the same. I don't think there's anything ridiculous or unique take you can have on South Africa. They're just a very good, capable side. I think the result against Netherlands is more of an anomaly. It's one of those, like, shocks.
And it was rain affected as well. It wasn't like it was a traditional 50 over game. I know that's 77 overs, but the stop start nature of it does, I think, come into play.
Yeah, I think you just get one of those games every World Cup.
Yeah.
As well. It feels like a bit of a blip, and because it's early on, maybe some form isn't all there.
Yeah.
I think a big question is whether Bavuma even gets back into the team now as captain.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Yeah. I think Markham's is as good a captain as Bavuma. Bavuma is the absolute captain, but Hendricks comes in and gets 85, and an 85 very good runs. But there's, I mean, Miller's not done a lot, I'd say, recently-ish, in this World Cup at least. But you quite like having a Miller at the bottom of the order as that kind of finisher role, which I think other teams have bizarrely kind of moved away from. But you look at this,
like South Africa kind of have 3 of those anyway. And
100%.
Miller,
and Janssen got 75 of 42 against England, and he was exceptional. But I think I don't think Bavuma probably plays tomorrow. I think he is still ill or recovering. But that batting line without Bavuma still, you've got De Kock, Hendricks, Van der Dussen, Markram, Klaassen, Miller, Janssen. That is as good as any of the other teams in the World Cup. I even think it's a more, our India fans are not going to love this. I think it's more of a balanced batting lineup than India's. I think it's more experienced. I think it's more more set roles. Like you see India yesterday having to bring in Surakumi Yadav. I think it was for a player. What player was it? But you know, they
Pandya?
didn't. Yeah, Pandya. Yeah, of course it was. Um, I don't really think Pandya and I would take Klaassen and probably Markram over Pandya. I would take Klaassen over Surashaya and probably Rahul. I mean, Rohit and Kohli get into any team, but I think South Africa's batting is, if it goes well, like it did against England, it's fearsome. But then it has that weird banana skins against Netherlands, so I guess it's capable of those kind of weird things that maybe India's aren't. But as a unit, I think it's as strong as any. I think it's great. And their bowlers as well, you know, Nagidi, Rabada, Maharaj, Kutsi came in as well for that game. And he got, I think it was 3 or 4. Um, yeah, he got 3 for 35. And he got, you know, pretty decent wickets as well. So he got Butler and Brook. And then obviously the 10 first class hundreds of Adil Rashid. But yeah, they're an exciting team to. I would love there to be a New Zealand South Africa final. I think I said that before. But they've always been the two teams I've really just enjoyed watching play. I think South Africa, especially, just due to the high tempo and the pace they play at. Um, and I'm glad that they're living up to their bill. I think because there was a lot of expectation on them in this tournament, and they are filling it.
Yeah, well, they're just a very exciting team to watch and follow.
Yeah,
And I hope they're the ones that win the World Cup.
yeah,
It would just be really funny if in Kohli's World Cup, South Africa win it.
yeah. I I think, you know, India are very. We'll get to India chat later, but I think if a team is realistically going to beat India, it would be South Africa. Um, but we will see.
Well,
Um,
saying that, I think in another weird timeline, I think New Zealand was very close to beating them.
I think yesterday they had a poor end. We will talk about New Zealand in a bit, but I think New Zealand very close to winning yesterday. Um, a couple of other things could have gone their way. They could have batted a little bit better at the end. Um, but yeah, New Zealand. Yeah, I mean, it's testament that they're the three teams. They're India, South Africa, and New Zealand. They're the three. They're the best teams. They're the best squads. They're the best lineups. But South Africa, I fancy them to go all the way. But that's me.
Same.
All right, let's bish bash bosh through the remaining two. Um, Second, we mentioned just now, New Zealand. We spoke before how they beat England and Netherlands in the previous one, I imagine. They're one of the few teams who've now played 5 games. They were unbeaten before yesterday, beating Bangladesh comprehensively, and Afghanistan comprehensively, and then losing to India yesterday. So thus India keeping up their winning streak. As we just said, they did play pretty well yesterday. Darryl Mitchell especially just couldn't really get the strike at the end. And then they only got to 273. Kind of pushed India towards right at the end. They won with 2 overs to spare. But it got a bit silly again with them kind of trying to get Kohli to 100, and it was rather than the game, and it got a bit like annoying. But just looking good. I mean, they lost Williamson due to that freak injury, so he'll probably be back at the latter stages of the tournament. But for a team that we thought weren't really gonna challenge, or at least I didn't, um, they've done good. I mean, especially like Rashin Ravindra has been a revelation in this team. He's done great. Like getting 75 yesterday, him and Mitchell batted really well together. They had a collapse at the end. Mo Shami picking up 5 for. But they bowled all right. Matt Henry's been good as usual. Santner has been excellent throughout the World Cup. I think he's the leading wicket taker of the tournament. I can confirm that it's correct. He has 12 wickets. Yeah, they've been good.
They've been a very controlled team. I think they're coming into a run of fixtures that will really test them now. They've had, what was it, Bangladesh, Netherlands, Afghanistan,
Bangladesh.
Like,
Again.
yeah,
Yeah,
like
Afghanistan,
you'd expect
Bangladesh,
them,
Netherlands, all those, yeah.
you'd still expect them to win it, but they've done it in a comfortable
Yeah,
manner. Like you look at the Afghanistan ones against England and Pakistan, and
yeah,
there's an element of chaos in there,
yeah, yeah.
but New Zealand just get the job done. Even
Yeah.
against India, they didn't seem phased. That was India.
No, yeah, I agree.
Like, and this is for the most part without Williamson.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
Ravindra came in because Williamson wasn't fit enough for the first game, and he gets 100. Like it was
yeah,
nothing, and he performed really well since. I think, like similar to the Boomer situation.
yeah.
Does
No,
Kane
yeah,
pop
definitely.
back in if New Zealand are playing this well? I think there's more leeway with Kane to come into the team, but I personally, if the team is playing as well and composed as New Zealand, I don't think you want to disrupt the balance of that team or the makeup of it,
Yeah.
especially if it's going to be in the latter stages of the tournament.
Especially considering how well Ravindra has batted at three. Because he opened in the game that Williamson came back. But he's done so well there. Um, I mean, I think you'd probably again they dropped Young for Williamson, so I imagine they would just do that again. And Williamson comes straight back in. But everyone's just performing. Salvi's still not played a game this tournament. I'm still on the sidelines. Glenn Phillips had a great game. I think it was against Bangladesh. Tom Latham's always I think, as always, New Zealand just happily trot along as the underdogs of the tournament, where I don't think anyone really talks about them because they don't play in that kind of massive, flashy way. But always are just very kind of, get the job done in their way. And in that way, very nearly won them the World Cup in 2019. Um, and I think they just continue that. They've got a good philosophy and they've got a good squad. Um, and they'll be thereabouts. They'll be the top four. Something would have to go terribly wrong, which I don't think it would. But again, I think it'd be very interesting to see them play against South Africa and Australia, two teams which are a much higher tempo of game, pace wise. Um, but yeah, I would like to see New Zealand continue to do well, and I thought they did very well against India yesterday. But yeah, they just lost it with the bat at the end. Really, they should have been getting about 300 plus. But yeah, they're the first team at least that have, I think, been competitive towards India. It wasn't just a stroll in the park. That Sharma didn't get 100, or Gill only got 26. They stopped Kohli getting his 100. They got Rahul out, and they got down to more than 5 wickets for the first time this tournament, India. So it's good to see them competing on the biggest stage for sure. I haven't got a lot to say New Zealand as well. They're just very workmanlike, professional. Got the job done.
I think that's a compliment to New Zealand.
Yeah, I agree. They don't have the drama behind the scenes. They've come
No,
to the World Cup. They do it.
to do a job, playing with South Africa in the final.
Yeah, see what happens.
Yeah, no
Yeah,
super, no boundary counts.
yeah. Last not least, there is a team called India, um, who are hosting this World Cup. Not sure if you noticed.
No,
They are currently 5 wins from 5. They have beaten Australia, they have beaten Afghanistan, they have beaten Pakistan, they've beaten Bangladesh, they've beaten New Zealand. They've been very good. Bumrah has been excellent. He's got 11 wickets, just one behind Santner. And two leading run scorers, Kohli with 354 runs, averaging 118. Rohit, 311 runs, average of 62. Yeah, I'm good. um, they brought in Shami, as I just said, for New Zealand game because the makeup of this team, and he gets Pfeiffer. Ashwin still only played one game. They've had a couple of games where Jadeja's been quite quiet. He got some runs yesterday, but bowling wise, he's not done an awful lot of late. But that you just look at how well Bumrah bowls and how much pressure he puts on at one end, then you'd kind of say that opens the door for Shami to get something like Pfeiffer. But they're just a very good team at home. They're going to be very, very difficult to beat.
I mean, similar to New Zealand, there's not a lot to say because they're just
Yeah,
such a well-rounded team. It feels like they do things in partnerships, batting and
yeah,
bowling,
yeah,
like make sure both
yeah,
components gel well with each other.
yeah,
I think especially the top three, all of them can go at a really strong pace, but all of them can go
yeah.
like slow it down and ease it in, and then speed
Top
it back
anchor.
up behind
Yeah, yeah. It's also when they play well, someone like Rowett, it looks like they've suddenly just playing a different game. Like the way that they hit the ball and the way they just smash out the ground, it just feels like they've changed the difficulty settings, and suddenly they're just playing a different game. And it's just I think they're just incredible to watch. Obviously they have all that kind of development and funding and IPL and everything behind them. They have incredibly wealthy bank of players to choose from. Um, and just a quick note on Kohli. He didn't get his 100 yesterday, but that would have taken him joint with Sachin, I think, with ODI hundreds. So he only needs two more to be the player with the most hundreds in ODI cricket, which is pretty good.
Yeah, I think you mentioned it earlier, but the way they started to play around Kohli getting this 100 towards the end,
Yeah,
like that could be their downfall if they're working it towards. If this is Kohli's
yeah,
last World Cup and they want Kohli to perform,
yeah,
if they focus too much on that, they might lose sight of the team
yeah.
because he's got to within about 3 or 4 overs with him mid
Two
90s.
overs.
Yeah,
So
and he was just like, "No, I'll keep the strike." And
yeah,
Deja was
yeah.
allowing that as well. Like,
That's what I did against Bangladesh as well. The controversial thing in the Bangladesh game was that one of the Bangladesh bowlers bowled a wide down the leg side, but the umpire didn't give it. At which point Kohli was on about 96, and it's sort of like this isn't. You got to give the wide. You can't just let him have 100 just because you think it's nice. It's um, but yeah, that's a whole other kettle of fish. But yeah, I think you're right. It could be potential. I get the sense that he's either retiring from 50 over cricket or potentially overall if India win this. Um, I get the idea that they're playing around him to get these records, get these accolades. Um, but yeah, I think it did almost get a bit silly yesterday, and then when he got out, it was quite nice to then have Glenn Phillips then shrug at the crowd, be like, what, what do you expect? I'm not going to drop this. Um, but he's too good. But we'll see. I think they'll still be final. I think they kind of almost book that in just by it being in India.
mhm.
Um, again, well played, India, doing good. Again, I've got nothing to say. Maybe there'll be a shock. Maybe they'll lose a game in the group stage. I doubt it. Um,
See the South Africa game to see the real
yeah.
test.
Oh, the England game.
Sure. Yeah.
Oh, it'll be funny though, wouldn't it? It'll be funny if England won that. Um, right. We're about to wrap up. But I have some breaking news.
Hype.
Well, it's not really breaking news. It is kind of news, just that has kind of broken, but has been rumors and talks and stuff. So the cricketer and George Dobell has been reported. So the cricketer understands. This was this morning. The cricketer understands that the ICC plans to stage meetings in November to discuss the future of 50 over cricket, with several members concerned about falling spectator numbers both at grounds and on television. I In a nutshell, that basically means this is probably the last 50 over World Cup. Because I imagine some of those members are going to be England and India and probably Australia, and that's where the money is. Because I don't really think that Bangladesh or Afghanistan or New Zealand are going to be knocking on the door to the ICC being like, "Oi, where's our revenue?" I think it's the big three, which when they don't like it, it's not going to change. So it leads to questions being like, what does ODI cricket become? Does it just become Test cricket in 2020? Do you change the 50 over format? So Sachin Tendulkar said a lot that he wants a 2 innings 50 over game where you have 25 over innings and then first innings, and like a mini test match in a day. Or do you shorten it to 40 overs? Do you do 35? Do you not have it at all? What do you think? What is your opinion? If this was the last 50 over World Cup, would you be sad? Or would you change it? Or would you keep it?
I think ODIs are my least favorite format of the three.
Mm-hmm.
In test matches and T20s, because weirdly they're so short and so long, the games can change so quickly and so dramatically. Whereas ODIs, it feels like the game is going in a very obvious direction
Mm-hmm.
by the time the first innings is over. And it needs something unexpected, special, whatever to happen in that second innings to be a competitive and interesting run chase. I don't know how to fix that though.
No.
I don't know if the 2 innings Tendulkar suggestion fixes that. It would, I mean, give it a try, I guess, but
Mm.
I don't know how you make the format more
No.
appealing.
Yeah. I mean, I put it out to our followers.
Mm.
And I think the general consensus from what I've seen is that everyone loves 50 over cricket from a traditional perspective,
Yeah.
in that it's a full day out. It's not like a 3 hour 2020 in the evening. It's a whole day of cricket. Um, you kind of get the twists and turns sort of a test match in one day, because you can get a game like Saturday where South Africa get 400 and that's the game. But you could get like once in a lifetime games sometimes, like when New Zealand got 200, the tie in the 2019 World Cup final was, that's a kind of game and experience that you wouldn't really get in a 2020, because that just went like that the entire way along, and it has time to breathe and time to develop and innings to build. um but is the audience still there for that?
Mhm.
Because T20 cricket is just everything. There's no franchise tournament other than the 100. That's who cares? But there's the franchises are 2020 cricket. There's not going to be any franchises longer than that because of revenue and fans and attention spans. But if you're just bringing up new audiences on a shorter form of the game, how are you going to sell to them a longer version? Especially when you have a domestic system like England's, where they're literally shelving 50 over as much as they can to promote something even smaller and shorter than 2020 cricket. Like 50 over cricket is going to have a very short shelf life, if even the big, you know, brands of cricket, ECB, Cricket Australia, whatever, aren't going to prioritize that as a form. I mean, Root came out today, which I think is just says it all. He said, I've lost the quote now, which is helpful,
Nice.
but he said that he doesn't have a problem with 100, but is saying that, oh, maybe players can play more 50 over cricket over the T20 blast. I'm like, that doesn't solve anything. That's what is like, I just, the fundamental 100, as soon as you introduce a competition like the 100, you're devaluing 50 over cricket. Like, you can't then suddenly flip it and be like, well, the 100's good, this is good for everything, so we devalue 2020 cricket, and then you go into ridiculous cycle of nonsense. So I love 50 over cricket, but I think have loved it more in the past.
Mm.
Like, I don't know if I've enjoyed the World Cup. It hasn't helped there's not been any close games. Um there's been some good surprises and good performances and some great wins by Netherlands, Afghanistan, for example, and South Africa are playing great cricket. But I kind of watch it with one eye on the fact that, well, a lot of these teams don't take it seriously anymore. So I'm kind of half thinking, why should I? As weird as that, I don't know if that sounds weird or not, but I feel like you look at the reactions of Butler and you look at the reactions of the players to not prioritizing this format of the game to play franchise cricket. I'm like, well, if they're not prioritizing it, why should fans? But yeah, because some of my best memories are from 50 over cricket and ODI cricket, not necessarily 2020. So
I mean,
don't
you
know.
go back to the 2019
Yeah,
final. Like,
yeah, yeah.
I think it was a very one-off game in how roller coastery
Oh,
and
of
back and
course.
forth it
Yeah,
was. But that's the pinnacle of what the format can be.
yeah,
And you're kind of relying on the spontaneity of the sport itself to produce those matches.
yeah, 100%.
I, I
But yeah,
don't know
if the
how,
yeah,
like, if you try and manufacture it, it's not authentic and natural
no,
enough.
but you're not going to be able to improve on it if the players who are playing in your tournament that you want to sell, you want it to be good, if they're not playing the format, then they can't be the best players in the world. I know they're the best players in the world, but they don't play 50 over cricket, so they're just playing this thing from nowhere that they expect to be suddenly good at again. It's just
Like, I might find it more interesting if it does get to the point of like the bigger players just fuck off to do T20
yeah,
and we get not necessarily B teams, but like we've said before, how Milan prioritizes
yeah,
England over whatever,
mm-hmm.
and we get sort of fringe players playing for the bigger nations because the big consequence is how it affects teams like Afghanistan and Netherlands
Yeah, yeah,
because they're improving exponentially because of the ODI
yeah,
World Cup. They're not playing a lot of Test match cricket, if any,
no, for
so they're
sure.
relying on both white ball formats to improve as nations. So I think that would be the saddest part for me if they got rid of the World Cup. It would be how those smaller nations develop because that only dilutes
Yeah,
any competition into the bigger nations. And I guess that's what the bigger nations want. And they don't want the poor little Afghanistan and Netherlands showing up and
yeah,
embarrassing them. They
yeah,
want all the revenue, they want the glory,
yeah,
and they're happy to be like, "No, just
yeah.
tuck you
No.
away. We'll do the T20s and you can."
Yeah, I agree, and I think it's also been looked through a different lens from this World Cup because the ticketing for this World Cup has been atrocious. That they released the tickets for fans only a few weeks before. All the grounds, of course, are all majority Indian fans. Um, whilst, for example, when England had their World Cup, you would have a real kind of divide, I would say, between the sets of fans. You would have full houses pretty much every game, even if it was, in Afghanistan, New Zealand, you'd still have a full house. India, you see grounds half empty at best for games that don't feature India. So I don't think it's really fair to say that, oh, people are watching it. And it's like, well, you're taking this bracket of India. I know there's only certain grounds, but I would put fair money that if you went to somewhere like New Zealand or Australia as well, that you'd get decent crowds in. But maybe that's my rose tinted glasses. But
It's a
maybe
strange
it's long enough.
decision to schedule it over 2 months as well. Like it's
It's long and why can't you have more double header games for all the grounds you have in India? I
exactly
don't understand why you have to do it one a game a
like people
day.
are gonna be more likely to lose attention over that
Yeah,
span.
yeah,
And it's already a format in which they've now admitted needs help.
yeah, yeah.
I don't think the organizers, whoever like ECB, whoever's put on the World Cup,
Yeah,
has organized it or planned for it in a way that would help make it succeed.
yeah. And they also, from the England viewing perspective, and I guess other countries as well that do play rugby, it's mostly on at the same time as the Rugby World Cup.
Hmm.
And it's like, why are you competing against another global sporting competition at the same time. Sure, that's not going to help either. But anyway, we
And
digress. We'll
well, just very
to finish
quickly
off.
on
To
that,
finish off.
because a lot of the games are starting either at 6 o'clock in the morning or about 9:30, which is obviously about, for English watchers, like in the UK anyway, like that's when we're going to work, and therefore missing out on the games completely because we just can't watch
Yeah.
them.
No, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a mess. I mean, I think this World Cup has been handled appallingly. Also from a running perspective in terms of crowds and behaviors and things like that. I think it's been incredibly poor, but we'll see how it goes. I mean, it could still spark life, and suddenly they'll be like, "This is the greatest World Cup ever. We don't need a crisis meeting," but I think we will have it. I think we'll finish it there because it's been a long old chat, but I hope you've enjoyed it. We'll be back with our round 3 when teams have played 6 games. I think that's how we'll do it.
Maybe we'll see
Yeah,
if we
I think
remember.
that's yeah. It kind of worked out today. But yeah, what's been your favorite bit of the World Cup? Let us know if you've listened.
I thought you were
uh,
gonna. I thought you were asking me. I was like that
no,
on the spot.
it'd
I
be
don't know.
Netherlands win. I've really enjoyed the Netherlands win. But yeah, if you want to find out more about us, or if you want to just follow us, where can people follow us, Jamie?
At just not Crick Pod, Twitter X, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube.
All the places.
Always have to remember and think hard
Where
about
we are.
where we actually are because I don't use them. That's all you. Well, I do the
Yeah,
YouTube, but
yeah, that's cute. But yeah, well, but yeah, thank you for listening or watching again if you got this far. I'm gonna go to sleep.
same.
But we will see you next time for more cricket madness. And when this World Cup is over, we'll definitely do a Just Not Crick and City Point. I feel like it's been overdue.
Yeah.
But thank you for listening. So it's goodbye from me, Matthew, and goodbye from you, Jamie.
Bumrah. What?
Boomer, just Brit. Oh, World Cup.
Lol.
Bye. Yeah. Oh, blimey. Bye.
Well tired.